Hi there. Welcome to adventure. And believe me, this is the place to find it. We're on the coast of Bermuda. And these that I've got in my hands, these are gold doubloons. They were recovered from a Spanish galleon that went down not far from here way back in the 17th century. According to the experts, there are plenty more where these came from. But there's a lot more than treasure to be found under the surface of the ocean. Here, you're in a world apart. A world we've only just begun to discover. We'll be seeing it through the eyes of a beginner, young Joan Gibson. And we'll do some serious exploring with the experts. We'll meet creatures of the deep, some of them friendly, some otherwise. We'll investigate shipwrecks and go in search of treasure among the Bermuda reefs. You know, it's not long ago that only a few specialists knew what it was like under the waves. Now, thanks to new techniques and equipment, diving's become a family sport. But it's still a long way from being crowded down there. It's well worth a visit. So join us, won't you, for a trip to an underwater world of true adventure.
We're coming in for a landing at Bermuda. This is where we'll start exploring a secret and mysterious realm. The realm that lies below the surface of the sea. Equipped with scuba gear, we're carried along by the electric motor in this gadget, which its inventor calls a power dive. We're getting acquainted with an underwater world, a world that's more than twice the size of all the dry land on Earth. You know, when someone mentions the age of discovery, I think most of us usually think of the days of Columbus and Magellan and Sir Francis Drake. But right now, just a few fathoms down, you can see sights that no one has ever set eyes on before. There are crevices and canyons to explore. There's a natural wonderland of plant and animal life for you to discover. Because down here, the age of discovery has just begun. Modern skin divers are still dreaming up new kinds of underwater adventure. What we've been watching is fairly ordinary. But now at a different location, off the coast of Yucatan, we'll be diving after dark. In the daytime, a scene like this would be illuminated by sunlight, filtering down from the surface above. A few fathoms below the surface, you'd be in a blue or blue-green twilight. None of that this time, though. Now, there's only one bright artificial light that we've brought down with us so that we can see the ocean floor and the creatures that inhabit it in their own natural colors. Here's an octopus. Not one of the king-sized ones, but full of fight just the same. This little fella has his own special means of self-defense. He puffs himself up into a ball and presents you with a collection of stiff, sharp spines. or night, the underwater world is always exciting. It's always challenging. And every day, more and more people seem to decide that it's where they want to spend their spare time. Now take this young lady watching a pair of scuba divers heading into the surf off Bermuda. For her, this is just the first spark of curiosity. But not far off, there's a group of beginners taking lessons. So why not? And this is how Joanne Gibson from New Jersey is introduced to the sport of diving. There's a lot more to this sport than meets the eye. No matter what kind of equipment you're going to use, you have to be thoroughly familiar with it. You have to understand your own human limitations too, and know what to do in emergencies. There are tricks to learn. Clearing your mask, for example, keeps it from fogging up. And of course, you have to be a good swimmer. Well, theory's fine as far as it goes, but nothing takes the place of practice. Now Joanne is about to get acquainted with the ocean floor. There's a lot to see just lying on the surface. Of course, not everyone you meet down there puts out the welcome mat. And this is just the start. Soon Joanne will be learning to dive with Scuba, which means self-contained underwater breathing apparatus. That's a particularly exciting sport around here because the Bermuda reefs are rich in sunken treasure. Our True Adventure cameras are about to record an actual underseas treasure hunt. The first man to go in is an amateur treasure hunter, Bermuda's governor. Following him is the expedition's leader, Teddy Tucker. And this is their goal, a wreck that has lain on the bottom for almost 400 years. The governor goes to work under the watchful eyes of a bluefish. Porgy fish are unusually friendly, but this fellow can't quite make up his mind. Well, look who's joining the party. Another local resident of billy goat fish. Meantime, Teddy Tucker is working with his airlift. This machine sucks up sand and debris that has collected over what's left of the wreck. Now, Teddy's wife, Edna, has come down to help. It's not their first trip here. Teddy discovered this wreck some time ago, and they've already made a number of valuable discoveries. While experienced treasure hunters like the Tuckers and the governor aren't going to let a shark interrupt their search. It's business as usual down on the reef. Bits of pottery, encrusted metal. Anything may turn out to be a valuable relic, a clue to the past. There may be golden doubloons, an inch under the sand, pieces of 8 or jewelry. We know that this old galleon once carried a fortune because Teddy has already recovered some of it. The question is, how much is there still to be found? And so the job of sifting through the deposits of century goes on. topside, the Tucker's daughter Wendy looks on as the relics come up. Here's an old Spanish sword. But not everything salvaged from the wreck is so easy to identify. It takes a hammer to find a human rib among these ancient cannonballs. This was a projectile, an expanding bar designed to tear an enemy ship's sails and rigging. And there are coins, Spanish coins, from the late 1500s. Here's a piece of 8, corroded by salt water. Just think of it, all this and more, from a wreck that went down off Bermuda just over 100 years after the voyage of Columbus. And so, it's no great wonder that people are fascinated by the underwater world. It's a natural setting for true adventure. We're at sea, off the Florida Keys. Our host is a veteran treasure hunter, Art McKee, and behind our camera is the world-famous underwater photographer, Peter Stackpole. Unlike the divers we met earlier, Art McKee is a hard hat diver. But when you've discovered the remains of an old Spanish treasure galleon, no one worries about styles and headgear. All that matters is that you're down among the wonders of the underwater world, trying to solve one of the sea's many mysteries. Art McKee has already put in a lot of work on this wreck. The relics he finds go on display in his museum of sunken treasure. Every cannon, every ship's tool encrusted with coral, every buried timber has lain here since the hurricane of the year of 1733. Working with an airlift, Mr. McKee is trying to establish the exact identity of the wreck. There's no conclusive evidence, but it looks as though we're on what's left of the El Capitania. She was a galleon that set sail from Havana as part of the Spanish treasure fleet of 1733. This was one of the richest fleets ever to leave the New World for Spain. But the treasure aboard didn't help when the hurricane blew up. Many of the ships went to the bottom of that Spanish main, much to their sorrow. Whether this was the El Capitania or some other vessel, there's not much left of her now. The only surviving timbers are those that have been protected by a covering of sand. Salvaging this wreck has been almost a one-man operation for Art McKee. It's a slow, laborious process, and it could be a tedious one for anyone who doesn't respond to the strange magic of these surroundings. But most people do. At least Mr. McKee's friend and visitors do. For most of them, it's their first glimpse of a world of adventure that never grows old. A quick trip to the southeast brings us to a point off the north coast of Haiti. This time, we're aboard the Sea Diver, a converted shrimp trawler owned by this gentleman, Mr. Ed Link. We're approaching the area where Christopher Columbus's flagship, the Santa Maria, hit a reef and sank Christmas Eve, 1492. We're just in time to catch the climax of a long search. Although absolute proof is still missing, it's almost certain that Ed Link has found one of the anchors from the Santa Maria, lost since the discovery of the New World. Now, this is no ordinary relic. It comes ashore with some ceremony, and it is formally presented to the officials of the Republic of Haiti. Back in Bermuda once again, Peter Stackpole's camera explores the cement cargo of a modern wreck, the Constellation. And there's our friend Joanne Gibson. She's now graduated from skin diving to scuba diving, and she's learning her way around in the more challenging depths of the underwater world. Of course, she has to admit that sacks of cement don't have quite the romantic appeal of pirate treasure. But there's drama here just the same. Because men have pitted their skill and courage against the sea for thousands of years. And here are the remains of a battle they lost. Even the metal hull of a modern ship can't stand up long under the pounding it gets down here at the bottom. Storms and corrosion aren't quite as fast as dynamite, but they're just as sure. Now, there's seldom any great mystery about recent wrecks like this one. Usually we know just why they sank, and official records can tell us who was aboard, who survived, and almost anything else we might want to know. But to really sense the drama of the story, you have to follow Joanne's example and go down for yourself and see what's left. Here's our old friend Teddy Tucker. He's not hunting treasure right now. He's eyeing the visible wreckage of a ship that went down just off Bermuda's Elbow Beach. His interest isn't just idle curiosity, because Teddy's in the salvage business. When he's not diving for Spanish treasure or historical relics, he's diving for anything that's likely to bring a reasonable price. This ship, by the way, was a British ammunition supply ship when she sank in a hurricane. That was during the First World War. It goes back a good many years. Now, the aim of this particular salvage operation is the recovery of brass shell casings. And they still contain their original explosive charges. As you can see, this is a job that calls for a good deal of old-fashioned muscle power. The collection of salvaged material grows, and then Teddy and his partners use some more muscle power to bring it to the surface. There may not be anything particularly exciting about a business venture like this one, but even here, you never know what unexpected sidelight may turn up. In spite of the years underwater, the cordite, the explosive in the shell casing, still burns furiously. The excitement of the hunt is even older than the lure of the sea. Skin diving experts often combine the two, and they dive for their dinner. Now, fish may not be famous for their intelligence, but many of them have learned to be good judges of a diver's intentions. That's a start on tonight's menu. Real sportsmen insist that spearfishing with scuba gear is no better than shooting sitting ducks. Usually, our friends dive only with the air they carry in their lungs. And of course, they're only interested in edible varieties. Jellyfish, like that one, they don't qualify. Now, we've only speared a few fish, but already this shark has sensed what's going on. We'll have to keep an eye on him. And in case you're wondering about what I mentioned a minute ago about sitting ducks, scuba is considered legitimate if you're on a diving expedition and have to depend on spearfishing for your meals. Now, where'd that shark get to? Getting a speared fish out of water fast is an important safety precaution. Otherwise, you're likely to have other sharks in the neighborhood who get a very sudden appetite, not only for fish, but for divers. Now, what do you suppose he's found under there? Why, it's a lobster. And a big one, too. Well, there'll be no shortage of food on the table tonight. The sun's going down now. The light's already quite dim down there in that underwater world. But tomorrow's another day. There's still a lot of coral reef no one's ever explored. And there are scores of sunken treasure galleons to be found. And so if you're looking for excitement, here's where you'll find it. In the underwater world of true adventure.
It's quite a place, that world underwater, isn't it? Which is why skin diving is one of our fastest growing sports. Believe it or not, the dream of finding sunken treasure isn't quite as far-fetched as you might think. Let me give you an example. Way back in 1643, a hurricane drove 15 Spanish treasure galleons onto a shoal called Silver Bank, north of Hispaniola. Down they went. 44 years later, a specially formed London company called the Gentlemen Adventurers sent an expedition to Silver Bank to see if the lost treasure couldn't be salvaged. Well, all they ever found was just one of the 15 wrecks. But from that one wreck, they took back nearly $12 million in gold and jewels. Now, the leader of that expedition was a young man named William Phips. He started life as a farm boy in Maine, but thanks to his treasure-finding abilities, he was made the Provost General Marshal of New England and finally became Royal Governor. That's a long way for a farm boy to go back in those days. The point is this: not one of those other 14 ships was ever found, and something over $100 million worth of that treasure is still waiting to be recovered. Well, I hope you've enjoyed sharing this adventure with us. Until we meet again, this is Bill Burrud saying, may all your adventures be happy ones.